Henriette Hoosby is a 26-year-old podcast host, business coach, public speaker, and real estate agent. She started her podcast, BusinessTalk with Henriette, over 2 years ago in January of 2022. Originally studying real estate at BI Norwegian Business School, followed by a master's in strategy, organization, and leadership from Copenhagen Business School, she worked for a year as head of sales at a prop tech company called Redata. Working in a male-dominated industry, she sought out conversations with ambitious and driven women to learn from them. She decided to turn this into a podcast a short while later and found instant success reflected in her podcast performance. From there, it grew naturally, and she was able to monetize it just 6 months into starting with already over 10,000 downloads. She would travel to interview guests to be on the show. Since then, she has participated in entrepreneurship incubators, hosted events, had many public speaking opportunities, taken on coaching clients, and spent a month and a half in New York City interviewing even more female entrepreneurs. Her podcast is now the top listened to podcast on entrepreneurship in Norway. After a year of her first role at Redata, she spent the following year working on her own business. Late last year, she decided to get back into real estate, so she's back to juggling multiple roles. Tune in to hear her talk about her journey, what she's learned, challenges she's faced, goals for the future, and more. I'm just going to jump in with a first question. I was wondering if you could give guests a brief introduction to yourself and background story to how you came to start your podcast.
Sure. As always, my name is Henriette. I'm from Norway and I'm 26 years old, but I'm living in Copenhagen actually. My background is really diverse. I've been doing a lot of different stuff. Always been interested in a lot of different stuff. I started back in the days going to dancing school and I wanted to become a professional dancer. And I've always been competitive, always wanted to do something more out of my life. But then I figured also I want to do something that I love, but also while I'm making money. And then I kind of quickly figured out that the dancing part was not a way to reach far up in the business world. And I've always been interested in business. So that was when I started business school back in 2016. And I started studying real estate. It was really fun. I finally found something that I enjoyed and like a place where I could, express myself in the ways that I wanted. And then I figured that I had to do even more with my life. So I started a master's degree in Copenhagen Business School, in one of Europe's top business schools. And I was so impressed by how far I could reach with the few things I already had, like just a small town girl from Norway. And I wanted to, start working in Copenhagen. So long story short, I got myself a job. I went through a couple of jobs which I didn't love. And then I went into a job which was within prop tech. And I was the only woman at the team. I couldn't really find my place, but I just stick through and needed to do something to spark my energy again, because I've always been this person that has a lot of energy. I want to, pursue all my ideas and make people listen to what I have to say. I want to inspire people. I want to do teamwork, but I couldn't really find my space there. And that was when I started reaching out to women on LinkedIn. And that was when my journey with my podcast and my company today started. So I just simply reached out to a random woman on LinkedIn, and it was not a random woman. It was one of the women she was actually nominated as the most talented businesswoman in Denmark within real estate. And I was like, wow, I have to talk to her. I have to figure out how can I become like this person? How can I, do all the things that she's been doing, right? So I was so nervous right before texting her, but I did it anyways. And then when I did it, I had like a couple of hours and she replied to me and she was like, I want to meet you. And I was like, wow, how is this even possible? How does she want to meet me? Like just little me. But we ended up grabbing a coffee. And then I was just so inspired by her story and her insights and the things that she could teach me, so that I wanted to teach others the things that I taught from all these conversations. And that was when I started recording them. So I recorded them. I just brought my iPhone, really, basically, just filmed it and used the sound of my iPhone. And then after that, my podcast was started. Of course, I got some help from some friends to help me, get the technical stuff up and running. But then after my first episode, and in Norway, it was such a hole in the market because there was only one podcast that interviewed women leaders, but there was no podcast with interviewing female entrepreneurs. So I really found my niche right from the beginning. I had my branding on spot, always had eyes for aesthetics. So I was really like, I had so much to begin with, and then it just blew up. And I had a lot of interesting guests. I worked really hard on also booking these guests, but quite quickly I got some of Norway's top entrepreneurs with a lot of like an important voice in the Norwegian business world. So yeah, I worked with that for half a year, and then I started getting sponsors, and I still continued with it, and I became a public speaker, I became a business coach. Yeah, so much from that day when I published my first episode has led me to do so much more, and that's just the power of to just getting started, right?
Yeah. Wow. Love that story. That's really incredible. I'm curious, like, if you could talk a bit more about, like, when you released the first episode and it blew up, like, how did you know that it blew up? Are you talking about number of downloads or something? As a fellow podcast host, I'm also still learning what metrics to track and everything. So, yeah, what does that mean?
Well, I think it also depends on what you are and where you are and what you define as something that blows up. But I was just a normal small town girl from Norway with no influence at all. Just someone you could pick me from the streets, of course. But I'm also, have some. I think I have some qualities that also makes me a good interviewer, and I caught someone's attention, and it made I had a boyfriend at that time, and he was also running a podcast, and he's also an entrepreneur, and he ran a podcast at that time, and I started watching my analytics. Like, I didn't know you could watch analytics on your Spotify thingy. So then after a month I just looked at my numbers, and when my boyfriend, who knew a little bit more about podcasting than me, he just saw my numbers, he was like, how the fuck have you sorry my language, how did you even manage that? Like, he was so impressed, and I asked other people in the industry, and they was like, wow, that's really good. So I guess that was some metrics on how I think it blew up, and also that other my guests were sharing my content. So I had my third episode was like within a food entrepreneur. She had 300,000 followers on Instagram, and then she shared my content, and then other people discovered me on my podcast, and then they've kind of continued listening. So I think that was, yeah. And after a half a year, I had over 10,000 downloads, and that was when I thought that these are, high enough numbers to actually reach out to some serious sponsors and see if I can make this as a business. And then that's what it is today. And
Mm,
that's a dream come true.
amazing. Okay. Thanks for elaborating on that. And I'm curious, before you started your podcast, did you listen to a lot of podcasts yourself? Like, what gave you, I know you said you wanted to share these conversations you were having with other people, but what made you be like, I'm gonna make a podcast out of this?
I mean, I never dreamt about making a podcast. Like, I've never been really interested in the subject and in the how can you say, the research and the field of podcasting, because you have the people who work at Spotify, for instance, with podcasting and working on developing podcasts and all the techniques, all the sounds, all that things. Like, it's a science, right? Really, like, sound can be in science. Never had interest for that, but I've had interest for stories, for entrepreneurship, for women, for equality, for raising my voice, for having a space for other people to raise their voice. So there's always been the stories and the connections and the inspiration, really, that drove me to make a podcast. And I basically think, like, if you would take me maybe 100 years back in time, like say that there was no technology for making podcasts, say that you would have Business Henriette in what, 1924, no, 1924, yeah, say that, like
Yeah.
how would I do it then maybe I would make an area with a stage where I invite women, I think it's not about the technology with podcasting, it's more
Mm.
about the stories and the content that made me want to do it. Yeah, and then it was like just like a lucky strike, really, that it ended up becoming a podcast.
I love that answer. That is a great answer. I want to ask you about when you decided it was time to look for sponsorships. So it sounds like you had a lot of success early on and you saw like really good metrics. And then that led you to reach out to people to ask for sponsorships. So I was wondering if you could
Mhm.
talk about like that process for you. Like, how did you decide, oh, like these companies, this technology is something that I would like maybe endorse and feel like authentic about that? Because I feel like that's what a sponsorship is. So yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Definitely, definitely, and I think this is quite a funny story, and it's also, I don't know, maybe not representative of how it is to work in sales or working in, making partnerships, because that can take a really, really long time in actually reaching out, finding the right people, getting the meeting, persuading them, and then gaining all that information that you have to give to maybe your clients and your customers, right? That's a long process. But I don't know, I don't believe in luck, but I also believe that you create your own luck. And I reached out to a product that I needed myself. So I thought that I would be, I will be in the forefront. So I would say, when I make money on this, I manifested that I would make money on this, right? So I just said, when I make money, I need to have a system so that I can have an overview of all my income and outcome and like expenses and how I can make my accounting so random like that, right? So I just thought, how can I do that? And then I started searching for accounting systems. And then I found a system called TripleTex, which is owned by a big company in Norway called Visma. And they focus on entrepreneurs, they focus on big businesses, they focus on everyone who needs a accountancy system. And then I found their head of marketing, and I just reached out on LinkedIn. I sent her an email, maybe really pushing, and and then she agreed having a meeting with me. And then I had a meeting with them, and I just presented myself, told them what I did, what my mission was, my numbers, what that I want to do, and then I just had some ideas that I just shared with them. And then I said, "Yeah, that's really interesting. Let us get back to you." And then that's really normal that people just say this on meetings, right? Oh yeah, we'll get back to you. And then you think, oh, they'll never get back to me. They'll just get back to me maybe next month or next year. And like, this is not gonna happen, right? So I was shocked, because 1 hour after that meeting, I got an email back, and I'm like, yeah, we want 10 episodes and 10 videos. And what's the price for that? And then I was like, what? You actually want
Wow.
something from me now? Like, wow. And I was just so happy. And I had to figure out a price. Because I hadn't sold anything of my products before, right? So I was just like, what should one ad cost? What should one video cost for Instagram, right? So I was like, I just set a price, and then
Mm.
they just said, yeah, yes right away. I thought that price was like, ooh, that's high, because I've never earned money on it, right? They said yes right
Mm.
away. That means I probably put my price too cheap.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah. But they said yes, and they are still my sponsor today. So then, of course, I've negotiated my deals over the next year and then this year. So we have a really nice and close collaboration right now, and that's really, keeping me safe within my podcast, and I'm so grateful for that.
That is so phenomenal. And I love that for you. And I love that story. What did you do for them? Did you do like promotional ads like in breaks between your podcast, or were the videos you posted on Instagram, for example, like talking about the product?
I think I had a really great idea, actually. I'm full of ideas. They're just popping out of my brain every day. And not every day, but sometimes. And I just said to them that, hey, I'm going to have entrepreneurs on my podcast and they're probably going to use your product as well. So what if we do an agreement that I make, authentic ads where I speak with my guests about this product, about what they think about it. I will introduce it to them. We just have an authentic conversation about it, and they were just full on because that's the new era of marketing. I think everyone who works in marketing, or maybe everyone, knows that now, that nothing that is polished and that is kind of in a selling vibe is not hitting on us. We need something that's authentic, something that's true. um so a lot of my guests actually use that accountancy system. I use it myself, and that makes it even more authentic, right? Because I can share from my experiences. It will be the same, like, okay, say that Google is sponsoring me, right? And then I would just talk about their search engine. And then I would just say, yeah, yesterday I Googled something and they gave me an answer so quickly. When did you Google last time? Oh yeah, I Googled yesterday. So that's kind of the vibe of it, right? So you keep it
Mhm.
low, you keep it simple, you keep it in the daily life kind of vibe. And that's probably why they're
Okay,
still
okay.
sponsoring me today. It's true.
Yeah, so you would just like offer that you would talk about the product like offline almost, like with your guests.
Yeah, and then of course in the podcast, in the recording.
Okay. Very cool. Good to know the scoop. Okay, I'm gonna pivot here and ask you about your job. You were the head of
Hmm.
sales at this prop tech company you worked for after your master's. Is that right?
No, so that was that job that I worked in before. That was the job I quit for 1 year now, and now I have a new job.
Okay.
So I worked
Okay.
in this company, and then I quit my job after 1 year because my podcast went so well. And then I figured I wanted to do a full year of doing my podcast. And yeah, so and now I got myself a new job.
A new job as in like
Yeah, let
your
me tell you the
business
story. So
or
I
okay.
yeah, let me tell you the story. It might be
Okay.
complicated, but it's not that complicated. I worked in Redata where I was the only woman at the team. I didn't enjoy it that much. I started my podcast. That went well, got my sponsors. I thought that I needed to free some more time so that I could land some more sponsors, and have the time to run my podcast, because I also got a lot of requests for public speaking, a lot of, I gained some coaching clients. That was something I also started along the way because I got myself a coach. I thought that I could teach others this, right? So this is me, right? I take the best people in something, and then I just teach from, like, learn something from them, and then I teach it on. Like, that's how we can roll,
Mm,
we learn from each other and we can just share it. So I did that for a year where I worked with my podcast, but then and I also traveled to New York for 2 months where I interviewed a lot of female entrepreneurs down there. I wanted to just explore my dreams. That was my dream, to move to New York. And I did that, and I kind of fulfilled my dream. I did everything that I wanted for a full year with my podcast. But I also figured that it was quite lonely to be a solo entrepreneur with a podcast. Even though I spoke a lot with a lot of people every day, I met a lot of people, but these are like not on my team, right? So it made me feel lonely in everything, because all the decisions had to be made by me. Everything had to come through me, and I didn't have anyone to spar with, someone who really understood my business and my business model for having the right kind of help. And I was lonely. I wanted to do something else. When I came home from New York, I had some time to reflect, and then I started missing the real estate industry, because that's where my education is, right? And I always wanted to build a career there. I always wanted to get better. I always wanted to learn more. So that was when I figured in November last year that I wanted to get a new job. And that is now where I work for a real estate company where you could almost think that I've made it myself. It's like 60% women in the company. Their logo is completely pink. That's my favorite color. We're really innovative. We're thinking new. We hire people like me, like entrepreneurial people. And it's called Croisette. And I'm working as a commercial real estate agent there, where I help landlords find the spaces, and I also help tenants find spaces like commercial properties. And that's really interesting, and I just feel like I was made for this, so I'm really really happy right now. But it's a lot. I work a lot. It's like, real estate Henrietta during day and podcast Henrietta during night. Coaching, I also work with fitness instructor. Like, if you would see me on the outside, it looks like I have 10 lives, but really it's just one, and I try to balance everything.
Yeah. Wow, okay. That is definitely a lot. But very, very impressive. And yeah, I have wondered about that myself, because I have never worked on like a side thing full time. And so I've never been like, yeah, it's just me. And I do think about that, like whether it would get lonely because you're not like part of a team. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious, like at your 1 year job at Redata, and when you were also starting the podcast during that time on the side, like were there things that you learned from that job or didn't like about that job that you kind of like took with you? And like was it difficult like starting the podcast and doing that job?
Well, at times it was difficult, and times it was fun, because when I didn't feel energized at that job, I could just quickly transition and go into work with something that I thought was really really fun. So I kind of had a balance there. I had like kind of the safety with the job, with the team, with everything there in the office. But when I just came home, I could do all the things that I wanted to do, and that was fun. Where I could outlive my fully energy, and that made me energized. But in other times, it was quite hard, because some at that office were laughing at me sometimes. They didn't really understand what I was doing, really old school. And I was just like, when people are, not understand what you're doing and they're not supporting it, then I think you're surrounded with with the wrong people. So I just figure, like, yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but they were just wrong for me. They weren't the right place for me. So that made me also want to quit, right? But it was hard at times also, because it was really really busy. I was working from early morning, late night. Didn't have time to, anything else. It was just work, and then the podcast, and then all the other things that comes along, right? So I
Yeah.
I do work a lot still, but I also think that that's my life. I am business Henrietta for a reason, and I love being that person. I love being that person who wakes up at 5 in the morning, goes to the gym, gets to the office, comes home, and now I'm have cooking some food. It's just getting ready for me when I'm having this interview here, right? So it's like, and then tonight I have to prep for something tomorrow, and then it's on again the next day. Like, that's my routine. But then I also have like a Saturdays is like a holy moly day. Like, that's not, I'm not compromising on that. I'm just, that's a day where I have completely time off. And I think, even though you do a lot, if you do a lot and you have a lot on your agenda and you feel like you don't have time, like, you do have time. You do have time for the things that you want to prioritize. And I also think that there's
Mm,
different stages in life, right, for prioritizing different stuff. For me right now, I'm completely single. I live in Copenhagen, in the middle of the city. I love working, and that's what I prioritize right now. Well, you never know what I might do in 3, 5 years. Maybe I have children. Maybe I live in another place. You never know. But you just gotta live in the moment, and enjoy the things that you have right now. And I think that made me really grateful.
yeah, that's a good point. And I agree. I also like to have a lot of things going on, but I also do try to be like careful that I'm never like too stressed out because it
Yeah.
will happen if I'm not careful. So I like that you set aside those Saturdays for yourself. Yeah, it sounds very restorative. So you can then bring all your energy to your busy schedule with all your things. Definitely get that. So also from looking at your website, I saw that at one point you were part of like a VC investing incubator. I was wondering if you could talk about your experience with that. Like what led you to like apply to that? And then what did you learn from being in it? And it sounds like you kind of ultimately decided that wasn't a route for you. So I was wondering if you could talk
Definitely.
about that.
Really good research, Rosie. You've done your job, but I've also done my job there. Right, that was just a 3 month program where I kind of that was in the period right after I quit my job because I needed something. I think when looking back at it, I think I didn't really believe enough in myself to think that I could be 100% entrepreneur and like 100% only myself with my podcast. I thought that I needed like something else that could help me, develop that. So I applied for Antler, which is a VC company or a VC investor, which also have like an incubator. And I wanted to go on with them because I thought that they could help me develop my podcast company and my coaching and see if I could find something in my business model already, something that I'm already good at, something that I'm already doing to make that bigger. I wanted to grow it even more and then I went along with them. But what happened was that I felt like I went into like a startup school and I felt like I knew so much about startups already so that I kind of it was really not like I didn't need all that information. I just needed someone who could help me develop the things that I had and it just kept on becoming busy with my podcast. And the VC investor wanted me to make like another type of startup. They want of course to 10x their money and they want you to make the next unicorn. And my business model was not necessarily that. It was something I already earned money on, right? You have coaching clients. That's just you're paid by the hour. Then you have the sponsorships. You're paid by the production of episodes, right? That's kind of also an hourly rate. And then you're paid by making videos. That's almost like a content creator. So there's like three different income streams that doesn't really resonate with the business model you will make to make a unicorn or make a scalable business in that way for what a VC is looking for. So that I found a little clash. And I also found that I didn't want to build a VC company at all because it's so hard. I mean, it's hard being an entrepreneur, it's hard making your business. But having a business where you already have an income stream from doing stuff already now, like becoming a consultant, you could sell your services online, just like try to sell and just see if it works. Making a VC company, you have to maybe make an app where you have to give your product out for free for years and just have to chase investor money all the time. Talk to investors. You almost talk more to investors than you talk to your customers. That's not interesting for me. I wanted to talk with my customers, with my clients, with inspiring entrepreneurs. So I was just like, no, that was not for me.
Mm, mm. Oh gosh, it's like really nice to hear that, your take on it. Yeah, because I think one of the things I've learned from my podcast and speaking to different entrepreneurs, whether they're just like self-employed themselves with no other employees, or maybe they have a VC funded business and they're working with a couple of people, or they just have like a small brick and mortar business. It's just been really educational. Like I think I used to think of business as just like businesses with investment, but there's so many other avenues. And I like from what I've learned, I am more prone to or more interested in something where you have a bit more control and it's not so like complex. And yeah, like you can make money on your product today, not like this like vague date in the future. I think that's kind of scary to me. So it's nice to hear that like you kind of have come to a similar conclusion and that you've been like through an incubator and stuff, so you've gotten like a really close up like view of what they want. Um, Interesting.
Definitely. Just another comment to that is that I see that a lot of these companies who were born in this incubator, some of them are still going on, but very, very few. And a lot of the people there are so talented. I'm just so impressed by all the people who were there. Just so grateful for all the people I met. And it's just so great for my network. And I still are friends with a lot of them. But I see that also a lot of the businesses that was created are falling apart now, and that's just sad because you spend so much time on something that you think will be the next big thing, but then you figure out, oh, maybe there was not the right team or they're not the right product, and everything is just sped up. Like it's just speeded up so much in that incubator. You have to find the dream team, the dream product, everything at once in 3 months. So for me, it was not realistic enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like the more I hear about it, it just seems like so much pressure to like it's almost like all or nothing. Like it needs to be the next big thing. There's so many other options for business and entrepreneurship, like in between that extreme and like nothing. So yeah, I agree. Um, and also speaking about what I saw on your website, I see that you've done a lot of public speaking and that you've received a lot of like awards for your podcast. And I was wondering, out of like all the awards or maybe any experience you've had since you started the podcast, what has been the most meaningful to you and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, I get so, yeah, that's such a good question because like everything at all, like everything at once makes me grateful that I can do this and I can, believe in myself enough to actually do this. But I think the most like the point in time where I was, it's just so many moments. I can't really point out one, but a good one was when I interviewed the former prime minister or financial prime minister of Norway, which was like, wow, this is big. Like, how could I, the small town girl from Norway, be able to speak with this person? I would have never be able to speak with this person if it wasn't for the podcast, right? So I'm just creating my own space for getting in touch with the people that I want. It's just a genius way of doing that. And like that genie, like that genius strike of that I did this was just like something that I didn't realize until I was already started, right? And the second thing that was kind of the
Yeah.
most memorable thing is that I received the Young Inspiration of this year in 2023 from her awards, which is like a female entrepreneurship also incubator in Norway. And there was a big, huge ceremony. And I was at a point in time where I was like, I was almost 2 years into my business. My motivation started kind of falling down. I was kind of in the middle of my depression after New York. I was a little bit sad. I was like, oh, should I continue? I was like unsure if I wanted to continue because there comes days where you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, like you're unmotivated. And but then I was just, awarded, and people just really had noticed the things that I was doing, and that just made it all worth it for me because it's so much things that happens in the background that no people see. Like nobody sees me sitting on this room or in the office. Like I was in the office yesterday, it was Sunday, no one was there, no one was seeing me, like no one knew what I was doing. I'm not showing off like because I'm just working because I need it. It has to be done. And for all those hours, when people see that in the end, you think like, wow, okay, I actually made a difference. And that is maybe the main part of everything, that I'm making a difference. I'm getting daily messages on Instagram and emails that people are inspired and they also want to take the step into entrepreneurship, and that's my mission. So everything that is part of my mission to making more women taking ownership in the world, that just makes everything worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad you got recognition and that you've continued to get it. Because it is really incredible what you're doing. And I agree, it can be difficult sometimes to do, like, so much of podcasting is not what is the final product. So it's a lot sometimes. And I agree, like anytime I get any sort of positive feedback, it means like so much. It's almost like I didn't know I needed that, but I really did. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Is your podcast weekly then? Like every week you do a new
Yeah.
one?
So I've been changing it up a bit. I'm trying to also have the mindset that, of course, I'm gonna, do it, be consistent, but I'm also gonna adjust it into my life so that there's no one like having this mindset is really helpful. It's also a good tip for your listeners that no one, like, you don't owe anyone anything. You're doing it for you. If you want to do it, then you're doing it. If you have a strong enough why you're doing the stuff you're doing, it's gonna come. You're gonna do it. You will make time to everything that you want because you prioritize the things that is most important for you, right? So if you want to do it and you have a strong enough why, you know why you're doing it, it's going to come. But if you don't know why you're doing it and you're just doing it because you think that you have to publish an episode every week because that's what Spotify says, or that was what the influencer you saw on Instagram yesterday said that you should do, well, do you know why you're doing it? Like, I'm doing it to inspire other people and share these stories. I'm not doing it for the numbers. I'm doing it for the stories, and I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for the opportunities that I get, and the places I can get, and the rooms and the voices that I can hear, and the voice that I can raise. So knowing why you're doing the stuff is so important. And I published, when I was, full on as an entrepreneur, I published every week. And when I was working full time, I published every second week. So now I'm aiming for also that kind of every second week, once a month. And I'm never compromising on my quality. And I learned that from New York, because sometimes I did some interviews with some people that I was like, nah, you're not worthy of this. I'm sorry, but I cannot give access to everyone on my podcast. This is something special that I've created. I've been working so hard with this. I have to have some standards. So I'm just like, not
Mm.
everyone can have access. I'm not compromising on my quality. So if you are not within the range of that quality that I want, that's fine. And that's like, there's always someone for you and there's always someone for me, and that's why it's space for everyone here in this world. So I actually made like a drawing. It's a really funny one. I made a drawing when I was in New York, like about my dream guests, which is like, it's a really weird one, but it's like, someone with influence, someone who's built a business for at least 2 years, someone with a voice, someone who try to challenge the status quo. Like, I have all these requirements. So if they're not within this
Mm.
range, then you're not my guest, and that's totally fine.
I see. Okay, I love that. Thank you for showing me that.
Give yourself some standards.
Yeah. So you would learn that from some of these interviews, it sounds like you would interview some people and then be like, I'm not going to use this because this actually doesn't feel like aligned with what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And that's back in the
Okay.
mindset that, okay, well, I mean, I get bad conscious for people making the time and to having the interview, and I also feel bad because I made the time. But that's also the part where you just have to be calm within yourself and just say to yourself, like, I don't owe anyone anything. There's no one sitting outside my door waiting for me to post that next episode. It's no one sitting there waiting like, oh, Henrietta didn't post that episode on Thursday. What happened? Like, wow, oh, that's weird. No one is doing that. Like, I'm doing
I
it for
know.
me. I'm doing it for the stories. And if it's not coming out every Thursday at 6 a.m. in the morning, nobody cares. And that
Yeah.
makes it really easy to live with. So make it easy for yourself. That's my goal. Make it easy for myself, make it fun. It's not fun always, but make it fun for yourself and easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I feel like I'm learning a lot from you. And yeah, I have also been like literally like sometimes I procrastinate until the day before. I try to do it every Thursday morning, and it's just like wow, like literally no one would notice if I didn't post tomorrow. Like it's just yeah. Yeah. Um okay, I also have like a kind of specific question. So, do you publish your podcast in two languages? Because I've seen some are in English, some are not. So, how do you like handle that?
Yeah. Well, that's also part of making it easy for myself, right? If I want to interview someone in English, I'll do that. If I want to interview someone in Danish, I'll do that. If I want to interview someone in Norwegian, I'll do that, right? So I want to do the stuff that I want, and I'm living my brand with my values and the way that I want to pursue it. And if you don't like that, I'll go listen to someone else. There is so many people out there with so great content, So there's just a space for everyone. And if you love me and the way I'm doing it, perfect. Then follow along. I'll take you into my realm and I will grab you. That's no problem. But it's all about making it easier for myself, and as long as my customers and my clients are accepting me for me and just supporting that, why should I do it differently?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And how do you find your entrepreneurs to interview today? And then also how do you find potential coaching clients?
Oh, that's two different stuff.
Yeah.
I'll take the podcast guests first. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of people that are engaged in my podcasting. A lot of people recommend me people. So I keep a list.
Mm,
I have a long list on my Notion where I keep everyone. So I have like a big board where like I call it women superheroes. So I have like a board with a lot of women that I want to interview, like potential people that I have interviewed. So there's always like a stream of people that I can contact. And then I just take sometimes I just take a maybe a 5 or 10 minutes session where I just, shoot out a lot of messages, and then I get some replies, and then I, schedule dates with them. And then I do it both online and I do it physical. So I can do both. That's how I do that. And also, I've had some people asking me if they could guest my podcast as well. Like, hey, can I please guest your podcast? Some of them I've been taking in, some of them I haven't, or I've just said, wow, that's interesting. Always love to hear people's story. I'll put you on my list and I'll contact you. So I always have leads there. That's the podcast guest. And also kind of similar with coaching. That's a little bit less, that's more personal, or like everything is personal because yeah, that's also messaging. A lot of them come from Instagram, where I publish just maybe a story and I say like, hey, I have some free hours now for coaching, like in the future please book a free intro session and we can just talk about your dreams, what you want, and how I can help you.
yeah.
So it's really about, being out there and promoting myself. Like I feel like I'm promoting myself all the time, publishing things of the things I'm doing, but I'm just always authentic doing the stuff that I'm doing and not just pretending being someone else. And I just think that all my coaching clients are people that resonate with me and people that want to either become like me or get something that I have, like maybe my energy or my unapologetic way of talking, being. And that's just great because I want to teach you the things that I'm good at, right? So I yeah, that's I hope that gave you a good answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And the coaching thing, I find that really interesting because like a coach is someone I never really could have seen myself as, and I don't do that now by any means. But as I've been doing the podcast and you learn so much from other entrepreneurs and you're having these conversations all the time and you're like thinking critically about like people's businesses and you're like digging into them. It's like, well, I feel like I like have something to like provide to other people now. You know what I mean? Like just as a byproduct of like learning about it consistently all the time. So, yes.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So, I was wondering if you have noticed any learnings in particular or personal growth or transformation from this experience. If you could talk about that. You've been doing this for at least 2 years, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I've learned so much about myself. I think that I've become a different person after doing this. Like I've always been the same, but I'm thinking differently around tasks, around people, around communication, around sales, around marketing, around branding. I've learned so much about business in general. And then also having the mindset, the right mindset of, pulling things through and just getting shit done. I just love getting shit done. Just like having that to-do list, just like ticking it off and boom, 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 go on, and being effective in a way, and also being able to prioritize. I mean, I think that's been the most challenge, like the most challenging thing, but also the most insightful thing, because when you live a life, like you never really think about, okay, why am I doing this, why am I meeting up with this person, why am I taking my time scrolling on the phone, like why am I doing all these things that I'm doing during a day. And imagine if you don't are actively thinking about what you're actually doing, and then you're going to just end up somewhere where you weren't really, active about where you wanted to end up, because you were just wasting your time scrolling. And I became like effective after reading this book called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And that was a book that was appealing to me because I was like, oh my God, I have so much to do. I have to prioritize the right things. And that taught me really to also, prioritize the things that you normally never prioritize, like the planning, the reading, learning new stuff, always improving, trying out new things. It's really hard to prioritize those things when you have like a full email inbox. And developing yourself, being like prioritizing workouts, prioritizing meditation, prioritizing going to the sauna. I do that a lot now, or maybe at least once a day. No, once a week, I mean. Not once a day. To like kind of prioritize taking care of yourself, getting that balance, getting that mental health, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And then I think also the most important part is also the people that you surround yourself with. Who are the people? Who are your friends? What are they doing? Are they inspiring you? Are they draining you? Are they giving you energy? Are they supporting you? Like asking these questions to yourself, or with about the people that you meet. Like I have so many people who wants to, like, hey, can we just grab a coffee? And then I'm like, sure, I want to help you. I just don't have the time to take free coffees all the time. If you want to, if you want to learn something, if you want to do a coaching thing, sure, I will help you. And there's like, you make sure that you spend your energy right, that you don't like just give and never get back, because I did that a lot in the beginning. Had a lot of meetings where I just like felt like it wasn't leading anywhere. So then I would rather prioritize spending my time with someone who's like really close to me and giving me something back, someone I can have deep conversations with, because I also need that support. I cannot always be the strong person and supporting everyone else around me. That's my job now. My job is to support you and be a coach, and I get paid a lot hourly rates for that. So if you want that, you can pay me. If not, be my friend. And if you're not my friend, you're not in my life.
Thank you for sharing all that. Um, and I really wanted to know how the podcasting has changed your life because I feel like it's changed mine as well. And they seem similar. So thank you for sharing like everything you've learned. So my last question for you is just what are your dream goals for the future? And I feel like I was also going to ask you, what's your dream life? I feel like in my experience, like it's a process to figuring out what your dream life is, just like learning what's possible and like what matters to you. So I was
Mm.
wondering what your dream life is. Very vague, but
My dream life.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really hard to say what my dream life is. My I think I'm living my dream life already. Because I just have to, of course, always chase after something more. You're always going somewhere, like, but also try to think about that we're human beings, not human doings. I get a lot of motivation from doing stuff, but I also just have to step back and be grateful for the present moment that I have. But of course I have big goals, big dreams. I'm not afraid of talking about them either. I want to become a millionaire. Why shouldn't I? I want to live in a penthouse apartment. Why shouldn't I? I want to have a great family. Why shouldn't I? Right? I deserve everything. And if you keep having that thought in your mind that you deserve the best things from life and you're giving life good things, I think that will come to you. So yeah, being grateful, and that also is a part of my learnings through my podcast, being grateful for the things that I have. Because you look at all these other people, but like, oh, she has 1 million followers, and oh, she's so cool, and blah blah blah, she's so different than me. No, be grateful for the things that you have and things that makes you happy. And I just think that, yeah, I'm living my dream life and I'm on the path to my dream life. um it's always a constant process. It's evolving. You're never reaching the end destination.
Mm,
um but having goals makes you want to go, right? So it's all about, as humans, we're all gonna die, right? So find a mission and just fucking make the best out of it and just go for it. That makes you want to wake up in the morning. That makes me want to wake up in the morning and grab a new day and just go for it. Yeah.
yeah, incredible. Thank you so much. Those are all the
What are your
questions,
goals?
but my goals,
Yeah.
thanks for asking. Um, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I really like what you said about I'm living my dream life now. My goals, they change a lot. Right now, they're like try to become self-employed, um, and explore that entrepreneurship, make a career outside of software engineering because I've depended on that for a while, but it hasn't brought me like fulfillment. Um, I really love clothes. I really love fashion, so I want to like work with that one day, but from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like I've always thought about like designing clothes, but I've never really done it. So I want to try that. And yeah, I have the same things. Like I want to be like very financially free and like free to do the things that I want. And that has always been a huge motivator for me. And another reason why I look into entrepreneurship like so intensely. And then I also want like a beautiful family one day. And I also want to be able to choose where I want to live and yeah, just have so much autonomy in all aspects of life. So those are my motivators. But yeah, I think those are my goals.
Have you had a coach before?
I do have a coach right now. I
Well,
have a
how's
life
that going?
optimization coach. It's going really well. She's helped a ton. I think like the most thing she's helped with is I've done like therapy and stuff and I still do. And I think therapy helps with understanding like where you're at. But I really like a coach where you work together to like actively look within, think about your goals, look to the future. Like, what are you doing today to get where you want to be? Like, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's been very helpful.
Nice. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear.
Okay. Well, those are all the questions. So, thank you again so much for your time. It's late there.
Thank you so much, Rosie. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope that we both, like you are very inspiring yourself. And I hope that we both can inspire all your listeners to take that step into reaching your goals and your dreams. And if you're interested in, reaching out to me or want to see my work or my podcast, you can find me under the handle Business Henrietta on Instagram. And my podcast is called Business Talk with Henrietta. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and for interviewing me, Rosie. Great questions.
Thank you. I will link your website and social media in the notes as well.
Thank you.